The starting point for any scrapbook page for me is faith. Faith that if I begin moving my photos around on the canvas, the story and the design will emerge. Watch me make Proud and Happy Tourist and see where my faith took me on this day. See my starts and misstarts, see my movement forward and the final result. Along the way, learn about layout design and figure out what story you next want to tell on the page yourself. Hello, this is Debbie Hodge with GetItScrap.com. When I came home from our vacation from Niagara Falls, I actually went through and I knew there were some photos that were going to go on a page together, so I cropped them up, put them on a 12 by 12 canvas, and saved them with sort of a holding title, so that on a day like today when I wanted to scrapbook, I could pull them out and work with them. And this one is of my son, and he had mentioned what a great tourist he was because he loved the souvenirs and he liked to wear the souvenirs. So anyways, I open this up and I start moving things around because I'm looking for a way to position them on the page. And I kind of stopped with this centered arrangement because I've actually used this before. If you take a look at Morning Bocce, a page I made before, it looks a lot like it. In fact, we even have a sketch over at Get It Scrapped of that. So now at this point, I'm going to pull out some product and start to figure out what my look is going to be. And I have a new kit by River Rose called TheTraveler. So I headed on over there and I pulled up some travel kind of embellishments and started placing them on the page. I'm trying to figure out what my look's going to be, what my flow's going to be, how everything's going to fit together. And this is the point at which I wasn't liking things. I'm not sure why. I was thinking that I was probably going to need elements at each corner for sort of a diagonal flow, but that wasn't really working with the symmetrical design. I was committed, though, to having one photo larger and two photos smaller because I wanted to have a focal point. A focal point's the center of a design. It's the most important part or parts of a piece. And a scrapbook page benefits from having a focal point because without some variation and emphasis among the elements on your page, everything's going to take on the same weight, the same level of importance. And the viewer's got to find some way into the page on their own rather than you sort of pulling them into the page and guiding them through. When you've got some kind of emphasis, the viewer's eyes drawn to a starting point, and then with some good flow management, it knows where to move on to. So I knew that I didn't want all three of the photos to have the same weight. I wanted one of them to be heavier than the others. So I started moving things around again to see what I could do, keeping this one photo of my son, the really engaging one, the largest. And that's when I saw a design that was starting to look a lot like a page I'd made before called Heroes of the Day. In fact, we have a sketch for that too. As I made the composition change, I realized that I also might need a change in the look of the embellishments and the styling of the products that I was using. So I went and got some more things from this Traveler kit, some non-themed stuff, and then I went to my new kits bin. Anything new, my newish products I keep in one folder, and I was looking through and I had a new kit called Easy Breezy by Crisdam. I'm a member over at the Daily Digi, and every month for $7.50 you get, I don't know, 7 or 8 kits by designers. So I'd never used anything by this designer, but they were bright and fun kind of products. So I was grabbing clouds and just things that were a little more fun. I think maybe that would fit more with the tone of this. It's less a sort of vintage travel looking kind of page than a bright, fun page. With my page kind of blocked off and I've sort of figured out where I'm going to put things, it was time to start thinking about the title. How much space is it going to take up? What color is it going to be? Where is it going to sit? And a trend that's big on paper and digital pages right now is to use misting, and specifically to use masked misting. They say that 3 times fast. In other words, you're going to mist around the actual text. So on my digital page I selected the words Proud Tourist, and then I selected the inverse, and then I started misting around it in different colors. Proud Tourist is with the font called Blackout, and I'm using misting brushes by Splendid Fiins, and it was time to just sort of play with looks. So now I've got my photos in place. I've chosen some embellishments. I'm starting to get a sense for the look of the page, whimsical, bright, fun, playful. I've got my title in place. I have an idea of how much space that's going to take up and what it's going to look like. And I want to pick a background canvas and I want to start to finish things off. I'm tilting the photos because I'm thinking back to that Heroes page where the two small photos were tilted, and I'm giving them some digital strokes. And in a paper kind of page, that would be matting them with a narrow mat so that they pop against their canvas. And I'm starting to play with other patterned papers, see how they fit on the page. And my journaling, I've got to figure out where my journaling is going to fit, how much space it's going to take up, where I'm going to put it, how I'm going to render it. Okay, and now it turns out I'm just not digging the clouds. And I'm thinking a little more space for my title might be nice. That I want it bigger. All right, and now that I've got my title larger, I'm thinking not only do I want it to say Proud Tourist, I want to add "and happy" right over the top, which I think will look pretty cool. So I'm using another font, and that's a fun script font called Cookie. So I wrote "and happy" and sized it to sort of fit right in between proud and tourist, and then I added a stroke or a sticker kind of digital edge to it and a drop shadow. Now it's time to get the journaling in there, all of the journaling. I reserved some space and I had an idea of how much space I was going to need, but it's time to get the actual journaling typed in and then make it look good. And then it's time to have some final embellishing, some touches that add flow and just finish it off. I tried a World Globe flare piece that I didn't really like. And it occurred to me it'd be nice to have some brackets around the "and happy" part of the title and that it would add embellishing touches. So I did a search in ACDC, which is where I organize my digital products. I tried some chipboard brackets, some glitter brackets. I wasn't liking those. And then I went to my new products kit and I had a new kit called Comic by EnKay, and they had the perfect comic brackets that worked really well. And then it occurred to me, what else have they got over there? And I found this really cool cityscape. And since we were tourists and in a small city, I thought that might be cool to use on the page. I didn't really like the way they were solid black, so I went back to those misting brushes that I'd used before, and I sampled a color from the circular border, and I misted over them to get a cool look on here. I was loving the look that I got with those brackets and the cityscape, so it occurred to me to go see what else was in this comic set. And I saw the OMG words and the thought bubbles, the talk bubbles, and my son Isaac is pretty goofy and pretty fun, and OMG is kind of the thing that he might say. So I added that right over the photo, and that was an awesome little finishing detail. Here's my finished product, Proud and Happy Tourist, the result of the faith that I had on this day that I made a page. When I began, I knew only that I was using these 3 photos and that my title had something to do with tourist. As I moved on, I understood that I wanted the focal point to be one of the photos, this really engaging photo of my son smiling into the camera, and that I would use size to make it the focal point. In other words, I would emphasize it with size, it would be larger. I started off with a symmetrical kind of design, and then I wasn't digging that, and I moved to another design. And one thing to think about is I used compositions that I've used before. I revisited things that I know work. In addition to changing the composition that I originally started with, I also ended up changing the look. I had started with some vintage travel kind of embellishments, and I ended up going with these brighter, fun kind of things. I ended up with a comic book cityscape, which is also kind of fun because my son loves Batman right now and the OMG. So these aren't classic tourist embellishments, but they go with the tone of the page. My title, Proud Tourist, I ended up embellishing on, and that actually gave me an embellishment point. And I stumbled across products that I had just happened to purchase recently, and they ended up working really well. As I worked, I reserved space for journaling. I knew I was going to need a certain amount of journaling, and I kept that space there. I don't always plan that well ahead, but I've learned that I need to have that here. So here's my page, Proud Tourist, and I'm pretty happy with it. Proud and happy tourist is the result of my faith in the creative process today. I pulled out 3 photos and thought about the story I wanted to tell. I relied on what I know about design and on what I know about my son in this fun day. You can master design principles too with our free class at getitscrap.com/learndesign.